at the border. Former President Donald Trump speaks out against the Biden administration's immigration policies. January 6th investigation. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill form a group to see what went wrong. Florida building collapse update. How people are coming together in show of support. And coronavirus crisis. Learn about the gradual reopening in Rome. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, June 30th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Just days after Vice President Kamala Harris stopped in El Paso, Texas, former President Donald Trump visits the U.S.-Mexico border in the Rio Grande Valley. He blasts the Biden administration for causing an immigration disaster. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, recent polls show a majority of Americans disapprove of the job President Joe Biden is doing on immigration. And the governor of Texas has promised to continue building former President Donald Trump's border wall.
We built almost 500 miles of wall despite 2.5 years of lawsuits, litigation.
In Texas, former President Donald Trump discussing the southern border where immigrants have been pouring in, including unaccompanied kids.
Do they really want open borders, or are they incompetent?
When he was in office, President Trump says his policies were effective at keeping the numbers down, but his signature border wall project was suspended, and the Biden administration ended the Remain in Mexico policy.
Remain in Mexico, so important. Catch and release, we broke that one. Chain migration, where people come in and then they bring everybody else in with them. We did a hell of a job.
The Biden administration, searching for the root cause, has blamed President Trump for the crisis, calling his policies cruel, but also warning immigrants now is not the time to come to the U.S.
Greetings from the White House.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris addresses the Generation Equality Forum, where she lobbied for abortion access.
When women have access to reproductive health care to stay healthy, they can participate more fully, and our democracy grows stronger.
The White House released a statement today saying it wants to remove, as part of the president's first budget, the Hyde Amendment restriction from government spending bills, reflecting the president's support for expanding access to health care, including reproductive health care, through Medicaid and other federally funded programs. But pro-life groups like the Susan B. Anthony List are outraged. They say the Hyde Amendment has saved over 2.4 million lives from abortion since 1976, but now Democrats are trying to repeal it.
Separately tonight, out west, severe drought, record heat, wildfires, more than 2,300 square miles already burned. And the Biden administration will hire more federal firefighters and give them pay raises. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Former U.S. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld has died. Rumsfeld served as Secretary of Defense under Presidents Gerald Ford and George W. Bush. He oversaw the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan after 9/11 and the 2003 overthrow of Saddam Hussein in Iraq. The 88-year-old passed away in New Mexico, surrounded by his family. President Joe Biden's regular parish in Washington, D.C. has issued a statement that its priests and ministers at the Jesuit-run church will not deny communion to those approaching to receive. Holy Trinity Parish in Georgetown expresses agreement with Washington's Archbishop Cardinal Wilton Gregory, one of the prelates who opposed a USCCB draft Eucharistic document. A statement by the parish council says, in part, as a parish which has a long history of welcoming all, we concur with and support the pastoral approach of our Archbishop. Holy Trinity Catholic Church will not deny the Eucharist to persons presenting themselves to receive it. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi continues to push for an investigation into the January 6 riots at the Capitol. Today, House members discussed a resolution to create a special select committee to look into the violence, a committee which Republicans call is nothing more than a political stunt. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
It's been 175 days since the January 6th violence took place here at the U.S. Capitol. Now a select committee will look deeper into that attack. Democrats tell me that it's not the preferred option, but they say it's necessary to find out the truth.
Kevin McCarthy refused to take yes for an answer, and now he's got a select committee.
House Democratic Caucus Chairman Hakeem Jeffries points to Leader McCarthy's opposition for blocking an independent commission. The House panel will be made up of 13 lawmakers, 8 selected by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and 5 appointed with the consultation of House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, who tells me it's just another attempt by the House Speaker to rehash the events that day.
And nobody ever wants this to happen again, but it only just goes to show this is politics. You did it on a bipartisan basis over in the Senate. She's trying to weigh it one side. She's playing games. And I just think at the end of the day, no one will take it serious, whatever comes out of it. It's just a partisan play.
Leader McCarthy says several congressional committees have already launched their own investigations, which have run parallel to criminal investigations by the FBI that have led to more than 500 arrests.
What's your opinion of Republicans basically saying that you just want to continue this till the midterm elections?
No, this is the only thing we want to continue is to get to the truth. And so they had an opportunity, and I don't think it should be lost on any of us that Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans, turned this opportunity away to have a bipartisan, even split commission.
Reports are that Speaker Pelosi is considering appointing a Republican among her 8 selections. Possible selections include Wyoming Republican Liz Cheney or Illinois Republican Adam Kinzinger. Both have been critical of their own party.
Have you picked out your members you like on the select committee yet? I haven't, because Speaker Pelosi has never spoken to us about it.
House Republicans tell me all Democrats want to do with the select committee is attack former President Trump once again. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
In Surfside, Florida, several hundred workers are still searching for victims from last week's condominium collapse. The volunteer team, that is, Cadena International from Mexico, is on site with their trained rescue dog, Oreo.
We never lost hope. We're always trying. We always work like everyone is going to be a live person underneath.
The death toll has risen to 16, with more than 140 people still missing. Miami's Archbishop Thomas Wensky says the community has come together during a very difficult time. The president and first lady are scheduled to visit Surfside tomorrow. Actor and comedian Bill Cosby will be released from prison after Pennsylvania's highest court overturned his sex assault conviction. The 83-year-old, who was once beloved as America's dad, has served more than 2 years of a 3 to 10-year sentence. Bangladesh will begin a strict national lockdown to confront a new surge of coronavirus. There are fears about the more aggressive variant from neighboring India. Daily infections have nearly doubled since last week, surpassing a record of 8,300. Many are trying to reach home before the lockdown begins ahead of July's Muslim holiday. Kim Jong-un has dismissed several high-ranking officials after a, quote, grave incident that is related to COVID-19. The North Korean leader said officials neglected their pandemic duties, creating a crisis for the communist country. Pyongyang claims to have tested more than 30,000 people and found no positive coronavirus cases. On a lighter note, the quarterfinals of the European Soccer Championship begins Friday. England advanced with a win over Germany, a match that drew the attention of a high-ranking fan. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson celebrates the clinching goal by Harry Kane in England's 2-0 victory in London. The 24-team tournament culminates with a championship game on July 11th. Coming up, new numbers on the attitude of Americans toward the coronavirus vaccine. Following the coronavirus pandemic, Italy is opening to tourists once again. The mandate for masks to be worn in public ended earlier this week. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued a Level 3 travel health notice for Italy. Since the start of the pandemic, Italy has been Level 4. Joining us now is Father John Palmieri, EWTN Employee Chaplain, who just returned from spending 5 weeks in Rome. Father John Paul, so great to see you. Thank you for joining us. And first off, tell us about your trip. How are things in Italy at the moment?
It was a great trip, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. I was able to spend 5 weeks with our EWTN Vatican Bureau, and especially after the pandemic and coming out after a year of lockdowns and just working from home. I don't know what they call it here in the States, but they call it smart working in Italy, people working from home, especially our staff, and they work so hard during the pandemic. It's always really edifying for me when I had the chance to go over to Rome to work with our EWTN Vatican Bureau, our staff and employees. And just to see that charism that was given to Mother Angelica so many years ago when she founded EWTN, to see that really alive and being lived out in the midst of Rome, and as well as DC and all the other bureaus that have opened throughout the world, it just gives me hope, and it kind of rejuvenates me in my charism and in my vocation as a priest and my participation in working with EWTN.
Yeah, that is so incredible. And also, I'm wondering, are we seeing signs that pilgrimages are continuing in Rome and maybe other sacred places in Europe? What did you see when you were over there?
That's a great question, Tracy. I think people are kind of hungering to go on pilgrimage again. People, first of all, are hungering to get out of their homes, I think, and maybe even to get out of the country. So when you go on pilgrimages like this to sacred places, it brings hope to people. When you go to shrines, it opens up a place in your heart to make room for God. And that's what I experienced when I was in Rome, to go to these sacred places and to see once again, to see people coming to Rome. Now, the first 2 weeks I was there, it wasn't really a lot of people on the streets. There were a lot of locals, and there were people starting to come in to Rome. But the last 2 weeks I was there, I really noticed an increase of pilgrims, an increase of people coming throughout the world, and starting to hear different languages, starting to hear even English language pilgrims. And I definitely can tell when people are from America when I hear that distinct American accent. But it's really great to see people once again coming to sacred places like Rome and seeing the borders open up.
And Father, on a personal note, I'm curious, what were some of your favorite parts of Rome, or what are some of your favorite parts of Rome, and why do you think the faithful should try to go there if possible?
Well, Tracy, do you have about 2 hours? No, I'm just joking. Well, St. Peter's Basilica, St. Peter's Basilica is always my favorite because you go in there and it's first of all where the Apostle St. Peter was and is buried. And just to celebrate Mass there last week on my anniversary of priesthood, I was ordained 8 years ago last year. And on Tuesday, there was a pilgrim group that came from the United States, Dr. Edward Shree and his wife, and a group of focused missionaries. And our viewers, our EWTN News Nightly viewers, saw Dr. Edward Shree last week do an interview. And I got to spend a lot of time with them and going to these sacred places, offering Mass at the tomb of St. Peter, and actually went to the catacombs of St. Callistus. I had never been there. And I actually went to Assisi with them on Friday and got to pray at the tomb of St. Francis and St. Clare. So my favorite places are, I could just go on and on. The tomb of St. Philip Neri, Scala Sancta, where the stairs that St. Helena brought back from the Holy Land. These are the stairs that our Lord Jesus Christ walked up. And just to walk up these stairs on your knees is just an amazing thing, to know that Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, walked up these stairs. And just to see pilgrims once again carrying on that tradition of walking up the stairs on their knees. But I have to say, Assisi is my favorite place.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And thank you for sharing all of that with us. We really appreciate it and for taking the time. We hope you get some rest. We know you're a bit jet lagged, so we thank you for spending this time with us.
Sure. Absolutely, Tracy. God bless our viewers, and thank you so much for our viewers for their support of our programming and EWTN throughout the whole pandemic. And what we did as friars and our staff at EWTN, I just wanted our viewers to know how much we prayed for you throughout the pandemic and all of our viewers. And we hope that you in your own heart and your mind are just a little bit settled and, have experienced the mercy and freedom of God.
Oh, Father John Palmieri, thank you so much. And God bless you and all that you do.
All right. Thank you, Tracy.
A new study suggests most adults in the U.S. who want to get vaccinated against COVID-19 have already done so. A poll of almost 1,900 people shows 65% of adults have received at least one dose. That is up just 3 percentage points since May. 14% of those surveyed said that they won't get the vaccine at all. About 1/3 of those who are unvaccinated said that they would be more likely to do so if a vaccine was fully approved by the Food and Drug Administration rather than available only through emergency use authorization. In New York's Bronx, St. Barnabas Church seeks the return of a stolen monstrance. The alleged theft took place prior to last Friday's morning's adoration. The Eucharist was not in the monstrance at the time. Police are looking for any information. As we approach Independence Day this weekend, the chairman and CEO of EWTN reflects on the state of religious liberty here in the United States. In an editorial, the National Catholic Register, Michael Warsaw writes in part, quote, "Secularists routinely claim that religious liberty is merely a guise for discrimination, but such a false framing belittles the sincere conviction of religious believers." Later, he adds, "In fact, America's entire existence as the land of the free and the home of the brave is predicated on the belief that God's providence is guiding our national destiny, and that's truly something to be celebrated every year on July 4th. For more on this publisher's note, including what Pope Francis said about the importance of religious liberty to the United States, visit the National Catholic Register at ncregister.com. Up next, Pope Francis reminds the faithful that God can help even the biggest of sinners. And a closer look at a former slave who is on the path to sainthood. Pope Francis says God transforms our sinful lives to make us missionaries.
La chiamata di Dio comporta sempre una missione a cui siamo destinati.
At his weekly talk, the Holy Father reflected on the letter of St. Paul to the Galatians and urged everyone to never forget the moment when Jesus entered our lives. Well, today is the anniversary of the death of a former slave who is now on the road to sainthood. Pierre Toussaint was born a slave in Haiti. He became a free man in New York and died in 1853 as a well-respected figure because of his Catholic faith. Pierre Toussaint was declared venerable by Pope John Paul II in 1996. And joining us now to tell us more about Venerable Pierre Toussaint is Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, co-host of God's Blueprint for a Happy Life on EWTN. Deacon Harold, welcome back. So great to see you again. There's really a lot to discuss about Venerable Pierre's life, but first, let's talk about his early life and how and when he arrived here in the United States.
Yeah, so Venerable Pierre Toussaint was born a slave in Haiti in 1766. In fact, his birthday was June 27th, just a couple days ago. So he actually died a few days after his birthday. And his owner moved to New York City to escape social unrest in Haiti. And upon their arrival in New York, there were not many jobs that blacks could do back in those days, and one of them was hairdressers, one of the few occupations that was available. And so he began doing hair as we like to call it in the in the African American community. And what's interesting is how he attracted people to himself. People were drawn in by his humor and his genuine kindness, and his cheerful attitude attracted many customers, including some of the most elite members of the New York aristocracy came to him to get their hair done.
That is amazing. Hey, I'm a woman. I like to get my hair done too. Tell us how he became so popular.
Well, one of the things that happened, he was nicknamed Saint Pierre by his customers. Why? Because he used that opportunity of dressing hair to talk about his Catholic faith. He talked about it very explicitly and also implicitly, of course, to people who weren't Catholic. And so people came to him not just to get their hair done, but also for counsel and to hear his wisdom and insights on things. That was incredible for that time. And it was very much informed by his faith. For 60 years, he was a regular daily mass goer to 6 a.m. mass every morning at St. Peter's Church in New York. And some amazing things even happened after that. Just an incredible witness to sanctity and holiness.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, was he born a Catholic?
Yeah, it was one of those things where the slave owner was Catholic, and so all the slaves were also Catholic. Same thing happened to Father Augustus Tolton as well. And one of the amazing things that happened was after the slave owner went back to Haiti, he died there, and so he left his widow basically penniless. And so while still a slave, still under their servitude, he financially supported the widow of the slave owner, made sure all the expenses were paid, and he was not bitter or hard-hearted. And he was eventually freed in 1807 at 41 years old, and then he got married and spent the rest of his life in charitable philanthropy, giving away most of his earnings to the poor, establishing orphanages and helping sisters, and establishing hospices and hostels for priests and refugees. Just amazing man of God.
Yeah, what an incredible life story. We know that, he was named Venerable back in 1996. What's next on the path for sainthood?
Well, it was a beautiful thing also is that the former Cardinal Archbishop of New York, John O'Connor, moved his grave because he was buried next to his wife and their adopted daughter, and he's now buried in St. Patrick's Cathedral. He's the only lay person to be buried, given that honor, be buried in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York. And so he's venerable, so he needs a miracle now to become blessed, and then a second miracle for sainthood.
Wow, we have probably about 30 seconds left or so, but wondering if you can give us any final thoughts, and also, how Venerable Pierre may still be relevant today.
Well, everything that he endured, the hardships, instead of being angry, and instead of feeling like a victim, he went out there and showed people Jesus. Even everything he endured, he witnessed to the power of Christ's love and Christ's mercy, and that's what drew people to him. That's how he turned people on to the Catholic faith, and that's why eventually he's going to become a saint.
And thank you so much for coming on today and sharing his incredible story with us. So inspiring and uplifting. We really appreciate it. Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, co-host of God's Blueprint for a Happy Life on EWTN. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.